Welcome to Brick by Brick, Building Wealth Through Homeownership. I am Kim Von Dohren, your Realtor.
And I'm your banker, Ed Marko.
So we're back to complete our conversation about flipping.
Yay.
Yeah. And so we left off with, we're about to actually visually walk the property, right? We're going to see it,
right?
Whether it's a listing you're going to see or grandma's house or grandpa's house you knocked on the door and they're willing to let you in. We're going to walk the property to see what it needs, see if it has any, here it is, tragic flaws.
Yep, I always look for the tragic flaws.
Yes, the things that make this, we're out of the deal.
Right.
Right?
Yeah, when I look at a house that I'm going to flip, the first thing you do is you look for houses that you want to buy. Then when you find houses that you want to buy, stage 2 is look for reasons not to buy it. I know that sounds insane, but it's
That's good advice.
it's the only way you can do it and not hurt yourself. So once you've found that pretty girl, you want to find out if she's schizophrenic or, what's the problem? Because, and is it a problem you can deal with?
Yeah.
That's the way I think. So you're going to look for stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I was pretty simple when I would look for stuff. I would always start with the foundation, go down into the basement. Most of these older homes that you're going to be looking at, they don't have finished basements. You're going to look at the foundation and you're looking for cracks in the foundation. Now, I'm not talking about a hairline crack in the foundation that's been there for 100 years. I'm talking about a quarter of an inch, an inch, worse yet, 2-inch wide crack where you can see the dirt outside. That's a fractured foundation. Almost all foundations have hairline. You could look at a brand new home and see hairline cracks because things settle. Mm-hmm. Settling and damaged foundation are two different things. You're looking for a damaged foundation. That crack generally goes to the floor, from the ceiling in the basement to the floor, and maybe even into the floor. So you're looking for that. You're looking for huge holes in the floor that aren't intentional. Drain holes are intentional.
Right.
A quarter of an inch crack from the wall to the drain, that's not intentional. So looking for things like that. Asbestos. You can buy an asbestos kit. I never did that. It was really pretty easy to tell if something was asbestos to me. If you're in a kitchen and there's dark red and black patterned vinyl flooring that's 50 years old, you can bet that's asbestos flooring.
I think that's one of the things that most people won't know.
Right.
Is that asbestos can be on the outside of the house, on the inside of the house. Mm-hmm. It can be wrapped around pipes. Mm-hmm. It's a form of insulation.
Yes.
And so it causes cancer.
Right.
And so now it is something people do not want to breathe in.
Right.
And that's the issue with asbestos. You don't want to breathe it in. So when you start moving it and it gets airborne, it's problematic.
Right.
So there are ways to deal with asbestos. It doesn't have to be a deal breaker depending on where it is.
Right.
Cement asbestos shingles on the exterior of the home don't have to be a deal breaker. Most people aren't outside breathing in the air next to their siding. But yes, it is.
Well, and it's locked in. That's locked asbestos. It's
for the most
as
part.
long as you're not ripping it apart.
Yes.
It's just there.
Yes. Yes.
It's like poison water. If you don't drink it, you're okay.
So it is something that you need to be conscious of because the remediation of it can be expensive.
Right. Now, I was always afraid of asbestos insulation because you just brush against it and it goes into the air, and I don't want to die that way. And that won't kill you right away. That's the problem. It'll kill you 30 years from now.
Yes.
But like asbestos flooring never really scared me because it's locked into that floor. So you could put on a respirator and peel that up yourself and get rid of it. You had to call the garbage company and contract with them to pick up asbestos, but they'll do it, But for me, a deal breaker was asbestos insulation. It just scared the life out of me.
And there is a lot of it. It's around heating pipes.
Yeah.
And you may not know that's what it is.
Yeah.
That is something you should absolutely verify because in order to take that out or contain it, sometimes they enclose it.
Right.
That is can be costly. So that is something you do want to be. And when we get to the buy and hold, I'll discuss with you the conversation around asbestos in one of my rental properties and how I handled that.
Right. Again, YouTube. Get on YouTube and watch a video about asbestos mitigation, and you'll learn a lot about it. The next thing I look for is rotten wood. So I'll take a pen or a screwdriver and the floor joists, you can touch the floor joists most of the time from an unfinished basement. You want to kind of poke those and see, is that, if they're not steel, and most of them won't be, most of them will be wood, you want to make sure that that's still solid wood. If it's all flaky and there's sawdust on the floor, you probably have an infestation problem, most likely termites. People will say, "Oh, no, that's always been there." No, it hasn't. That's not intentional. It's not the way things are built. Same thing with the pillars that are holding up the house. You want to touch those pillars. If you've got an old wooden pillar and it's swinging, you can put your hand underneath it
Mm,
in the basement,
yeah.
and then there's 2x4s wrapped around it that touch the floor.
Hmm.
There could be an issue there with the house settling more than it should. It might be normal in that market. You need to know these things by knowing, again, 100-year-old center row townhouse, it's got all kinds of support around it. It's probably not going anywhere.
Hmm.
That 70-year-old bungalow on the eighth acre lot all by itself, that's probably got a problem if you're seeing that there.
Right.
So you need to know what you're looking at. Crooked doors and crooked windows. If you're looking at a house and the front door is straight and the back door is crooked, there's something bad going on there. The house is twisting, which means it's settling on one side or raising on something's going on there. Very rarely are you going to see that in a townhouse. But again, that 70-year-old bungalow that looks like it's a dream, easy to flip, that foundation is settling, sinking into the ground. There might be a sinkhole under there you don't know about. Worst thing in the world. You go into a 100-year-old house and there's a sub pump in the basement.
You
That's
can go into a 50-year-old house and there's a sump
a
pump in the
10-year-old
basement.
house. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
If you see a sub pump in the basement, that's a pretty good indication that that's not a dry basement.
Hmm.
That's not a deal breaker.
Right.
You just need to know you're not going to put wall-to-wall carpeting down there and have a $15,000 home entertainment set up.
Right.
Because if it rains enough, that sub pump's probably there for a reason.
Hmm.
So you're going to have a gym down there, or a place for the kids to drive their bikes around in the wintertime or whatever.
Right.
It's still serviceable. It's not a deal breaker for me.
Right.
I just know that I'm not going to spend $10,000 finishing that basement.
Right.
If you go into a 100-year-old house and there's no sub pump and the basement is dry as a bone, you probably got a pretty dry house. So those are the things that I look for.
Right.
Rotten wood in the basement, rotten wood oh my gosh, in the attic, the crawl space, whatever is up there. I see people make, this is a tragic mistake that I see so many people make. They get to a house where there's a crawl space and they don't want to crawl up there because of the insulation that's in the attic, and it looks yucky and there's spider webs and all that stuff. You got to suck it up, Mary Jane. You got to get up there. You need to touch every one of those joists with your pen or screwdriver to make sure it's strong, and tap the ceiling, which is what the roof is sitting on, that wood that holds up those shingles. You want to tap every few feet on there to make sure there's no moist areas. If there is a moist area, again, not a deal breaker. You just need to put that in the math. Put that in. It's got to be in the math. And these are the things you want to look at before you make an offer on the house.
Right.
Because you're going to use all of this knowledge to make the offer on the house.
So for you, the tragic flaws mean I'm not choosing this. This isn't my flip.
It's, too much work for me.
Yes.
Doesn't mean that the house is garbage. It
Right.
means it's too much work for me.
Right.
I just can't.
Right.
I don't want to deal with asbestos insulation. I'm just afraid of it.
Right.
And I'll just be honest. I'm not a foundation guy. If
Right.
there's a crack in the foundation, I just kind of like, you know what? If there are these little hairline fractures, those don't
Right.
scare me. That's typical. But I've been in a couple of houses where there was half-inch to an inch-long crack that started at the top of the basement ceiling, the highest part of the basement, that worked its way all the way down to the floor to where it came to like a little point. And I could just put my hand in there and feel those rocks and feel that dirt on the other side. there's something
Yeah.
not good here.
And to be fair, this isn't a house for you to flip, but,
Mhm.
you know,
Somebody else might.
Bob the contractor,
Uh-huh.
who it's no big deal for him. He has, a handful of workers
Yeah.
who will come in, they'll repair the wood that is degraded due to water or due
Right.
to wood destroying insects.
Right.
He can manage foundations can be repaired.
Yeah.
They can, and when you have those type of resources, a
Mhm.
job like that is different
Right.
for him than it is for you and I, who
Right.
are using ourselves are our biggest resource. And we
Right.
don't have that skill level, those workers, the resources that they have with regard to materials. It's a different ball game.
Yeah.
They have they have an advantage in the flip game.
Absolutely. And you want to work within your skill set
That's right.
and your circle of influence.
Yep.
So I don't know anybody that's good at foundations. I actually know people that say they are and they're terrible at it. So I just stay away from it. I
Mhm.
just stay away from it. I know a couple of decent roofers that work. I don't do roofing, but a bad roof or a wet roof, depending on how bad it is, might not scare me because I know it's as simple as we're going to peel the old roof off. We're going to take out that rotted wood, put in some new wood, put on a new roof, and the problem's solved. And I know my roofer can do it. So I'm not worried about that so much as I am,
Right.
the things that I am worried about. But that's what you're looking for. You're looking for things that would discount that property for you.
Got it.
You're also looking for ammunition to lower the expectations of the person that you're buying the house from.
Right.
You're trying to manage the reality of the situation. Like I said, you're there to hopefully help them, but not to your own detriment. Remember, we're in business here. We need to buy low and sell high.
Right.
So we need to be honest with the person that we're buying it from and honest with ourselves. Almost every time somebody makes a mistake purchasing anything, it's because they're not honest with themselves, theirself.
Hmm.
They either can't afford it, they're getting in over their head, they were lazy and didn't look at it the right way. They didn't know what they were looking at, and they
Mhm.
didn't know what they didn't know.
Right.
They weren't honest enough to say, I don't know why that toilet's the way it is.
Right.
Better call a plumber.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you need to know what's going on so that you can present a proper
Right.
offer.
The other thing, and I'm just going to bring this up because this has happened to me,
Mhm.
is that you need to walk the outside of the property,
Mhm.
not just the inside of the property.
Right. Yeah.
And if it's in town, for example, and one of the municipal inspections when property transfers ownership is that now you're going to be responsible for the cracked and broken sidewalk out front,
Mhm.
and you didn't realize there was a cracked and broken sidewalk out front. That's $3,000 or $5,000. Now your profits reduced or eliminated because you
Right.
missed that sidewalk.
Right.
So it is important that you are walking the exterior
Yeah.
and taking into consideration all of the exterior of
Yep.
the home.
Sidewalks, guardrails,
Mhm.
handrails.
Yeah.
What condition is the landscaping
Right.
is if there is a retaining wall,
Yes.
is it falling apart?
Yes.
Do we need to go to Lowe's and learn how to fix that? You know, eaves, the eaves of how, it's one
Yes.
thing to look at the roof. Everybody skips the eaves, which is
Yes.
the part where the roof connects to the house that
Mhm.
where it goes like under a little bit, where you hang the Christmas lights if you're a
Where
Christmas
all the
person.
shipping and peeling paint is.
Yes, exactly. The horrible way up high place that nobody wants to get to.
Yes.
You need to look at that. That's really super important. That's one of the most neglected places on any house.
Mhm.
It's terrible. And the vinyl siding guys, they'll just run vinyl over rotten wood.
Absolutely.
And then you find out after you bought it that there's all this rotten, decaying wood, and that's why the ceiling is wet.
Mhm.
And now you've got to peel all that. Anyway, that's another conversation. So you need to do that whole thing on the outside too. Look at the windows. Look at the
Mhm.
trim on the windows. Or do you have rotted windows on the inside or the outside? All those kind of things matter. Take your time. Take your time.
Absolutely.
So
So we've looked at the house.
yes,
We've decided we're going to buy it.
we want to buy it. So
Yes.
we're going to sit down with grandma and we're going to say, we want to buy your house. We're certainly looking to buy it. You don't lie to people. You tell them we're going to buy this and we're going to fix it up and we're going to sell it to a nice family so somebody else can enjoy living here.
Mhm.
Wouldn't that make you happy? Oh, yes, that would. Oh, that would make me so happy. Great. Well, here's what we found out. Looks like you need a roof. That's going to be about $5,000. The floors are almost as old as I am. So you need to replace all those. You know your refrigerator is on its last leg. Nobody wants mismatched appliances. You're going to need to replace all the appliances. You're going to go through all this stuff with her. Bathroom needs a repair. The paint is faded on the outside and the trim is done, and the fixtures need to be replaced. And you're just going to explain to her, you're not going to tell her your house is falling apart, but you're going to be honest with her.
Yes.
This is what people want when they buy a house these days. This was wonderful when you bought it and it served its purpose for you, but this is what we need to do to get it to serve its purpose for the next people. So what we're willing to pay you is, in this case, let's just say $100,000, and we can close in 2 or 3 weeks, whatever, you've already got your finances set aside. And hopefully she's going to say, you know what? Yeah, now I can move in with my daughter in Florida, and this would just be wonderful. Thank you so much. I'll see you at closing. I'm so excited.
This is definitely the ideal scenario.
It is ideal.
We're giving the ideal scenario, folks.
Right. We'll have a conversation at a later date about how to overcome objections and all that kind of stuff. But let's say she said yes, and now we went to closing. She's all moved out, and it's destruction day.
Demo day.
Demo day. I want to stop right here, and I want to talk about something that is really important to me and should be important to anybody listening to this. If you're going to do this, you need to do good work. You don't want to do slipshod work. You want to do the best job that you can doing this within the budget that you have set, and you need it to be done quality and right the first time. People talk. And if you do a bad flip, everybody in the real estate, Kim, can you talk a little bit about how that works?
Absolutely. So, we sell flips to people all the time. I have buyers who I'm taking to look at your property that you just flipped. And so it doesn't take long because I'm going to look up who owns the property. So if it's ABC Flipping Company, I'm going to remember that. When I walk in the door and I see what kind of work you did, I'm going to know. So the next time I see ABC Flipping Company and my buyer wants to go see it, I'm going to say, well, I've seen ABC's flipping companies work, and they aren't the best. I'm happy to take you to see it, but just be aware. These are some things to look out for. Now, there is the opposite side of that story, which is there was a gentleman who did flips in our local city here, and he became so known for how lovely his flips were that his agent started putting, and I'm not going to say his name, but, Sam Smith flip, come see the Sam Smith flip. And everybody knew that was his flip, and you would be delighted because you knew he did excellent work.
Exactly.
And so that's, we as realtors, we know who the good flippers are. We know who the bad ones are.
Right. So you want to be a good flipper. You want to, in my lifetime, especially when it came to business, the only thing that mattered to me was my reputation. It was far and away above whatever profit margin I had. I wanted people to respect my name and know that if this guy was doing something, it was a worthwhile endeavor. It was worth looking at. I actually loathe the word flip because it sounds simple and easy and cheap and fast. And flipping is anything but those things.
Right.
It's hard work. It requires determination, skill sets, and the ability to complete something and right the first time. So do yourself a favor and do it right. Set aside enough time to do the things that you need to do, and get good at math, and get good at using online and going into these hardware stores and learning pricing and all that kind of stuff. And when in doubt, go check. Because the worst thing that can happen is you think something's going to cost you $5,000, and when it's all said and done, it's $20,000.
And we kind of skipped that part.
Well, we're going there next.
Okay.
So we identified all these things with Grandma, and she's gone, and now it's time to get started. So we need a new roof. We anticipated that was going to cost $5,000.
That's the part we skipped.
Right.
Not this.
Right.
We didn't mention that what we're doing after we see Grandma's house, and we go home, and we estimate what is the cost of repair. We skipped that.
Yes, we did.
And you have to know that before you make your offer.
Right.
We have skipped that
Right.
computation that
So
you
let's do that. So we know we needed a roof, and we're anticipating. We called our roofer guy and said, "Here's what I saw on the roof. If what I tell you is correct, how much would it cost?" And you should have. I have a relationship now with a roofer guy that'll do that for me. And he said roughly $5,000 because it was a rolled roof and very quick and easy. Floors. So the floors were roughly 10 by 12, and when you go in and you get on Home Depot or Lowe's website and you look to see what are you going to pay per square foot for the kind of flooring that you want to put down. My favorite flooring in the world is the click together luxury vinyl planking.
Mhm.
It's wonderful. It's extremely durable. Whether you're selling the house or renting the house, very difficult to damage. It's great stuff. So on this particular house, between the flooring, the material that I needed to prep, all of those kind of things, it came to $3,000. We needed 3 appliances. We needed a washing machine, a dishwasher rather, a range, and a refrigerator. And those I could find Hot Point, very inexpensive, all matching, $600, $800, and $400 respectively. You would buy appliances that match the neighborhood. So if you're in a neighborhood where there's a lot of BMWs and Mercedes-Benz, you might want to have some middle of the road to upscale appliances. If you're in town, which is where we did this most of the time, you are fine with regular black or white appliances, just so they match. Do you want it to look nice?
Mhm.
And buy something of reasonable quality, because your name is on that, right? So we got that. That came to $1,800. We needed bathroom repair. We had a sinking toilet. I was going to require pulling the toilet out, fixing the floor, redoing the floor, putting the toilet back. We were looking at $2,000 for all of that. Paint inside and out. We're going to use about paint on the inside. We're going to use about 10 gallons of paint. I'm going to use a middle of the road, not the cheapest paint money can buy, because you'll just never stop painting, because that's how it works. You want to buy a good single coat self-priming paint. I'm not going to name brands, but they're out there. The decent paint's going to cost you right now about $40 a gallon. We're going to need 10 of those. That's $400, plus all the materials that we need to prep. So we're going to need some rubber gloves, the blue tape that goes around everything, sandpaper, caulking, spackle, all the stuff that we're going to need for that. So you're going to figure $400 for paint, another $600 for incidentals. Always at least double your paint. Whatever you think in your head, double it. Outside trim, same deal. We need X amount of paint. That's about $300. Switch plates, fixtures, faucets. We're going to replace the faucets because they're really outdated.
Right.
We're not going to replace the countertops or anything like that. They're still okay. They just need a good cleaning. So we're looking at about $1,200 there. I'm going to include an $800 fudge factor on this particular one. This is actually based on one that we did. Total cost of rehab, $15,000. I want to make $35,000 or $40,000. We think the house is going to sell for $150,000. That means we can offer her $100,000, and that's how we came up with that $100,000.
Right. So your offer amount comes after you have seen the house, you know exactly what it needs.
Yes.
You then go out and price all your materials and costs, whether you got to hire somebody or you're going to be the labor. You have to get all of that math as close to accurate as possible. You used an $800 fudge factor.
Yep.
I use $5,000.
Well, I was going to say that was going to be my next thing is, this is based on one that my wife and I actually did, but that was years ago. I would probably say add 10%.
Yeah.
I
I like to make a big buffer for myself.
Yeah.
And maybe I'm too conservative at times, but I don't want to be left holding the bag. And I was one time. And so that has affected the way I make decisions today. And someday I'll tell that story.
Yeah.
Someday we'll talk about that story. But yeah, you definitely have to have your numbers as close as possible. Then give yourself a fudge factor amount that makes you feel comfortable. Then, okay, if this is what those houses are selling for, And the cost to sell it, I got to pay a realtor now to list it for sale. So you got to include the cost to sell it, your costs to carry it if you're having a mortgage, as we discussed.
Interest, all that stuff.
All those numbers have to be calculated into, okay, given that, if I want to make at least this much money, I can offer her this much.
Right. And that's how you determine that's why you make the appointment, walk through the house, let them know you're going to come back, schedule an appointment to come back. So in a perfect world, you get that all finished and you list the house and you get it sold for what you're asking for it or close to what you're asking for it in either direction. You take that money, you bank it, you pay off all of your debt that you accumulated setting this one up. That frees up your cash flows again, and you look to do it again.
Right.
Sometimes the market shifts, like, for instance, when COVID hit. Then you have to start figuring out, what do I do now? And now I've got this house that I've completed, and I've got all this money tied up. What am I going to do?
Right.
What do we do?
So one of the options that you would have, and let's just say for a minute that you've sat on the market for a little while and it hasn't sold for your asking price. Now you're confronted with the question of, do I want to reduce the price and make a smaller profit? And if you decide, no, you don't want to do that because you are carrying costs every month it's sitting on the market in addition to the time it took you to rehab. So the option then might be, maybe I hold this property, is how we refer to it as investors, and make it a buy and hold and turn it into a rental, especially if you can get market rent that covers your monthly carrying costs and nets you some sort of a profit on top of it. It may be worth it to hang on to it and rent the property instead of selling it and then maybe choosing at a later date to sell the property.
Correct. So you're going to hang on to that. You want to try to get it to cash flow. You still have this debt to deal with. You've made these improvements. So what you're going to want to do under those circumstances, since you've decided, okay, we're just going to hang on to this and make it a rental, you want to get with your banker and do what's called a cash out refinance. Now you're going to be able to refinance the property based on its new value because it's all fixed up and ready to go. So you've got a house that's worth $160,000, $170,000. If it's a single unit, you can borrow 75% of that, get all of your other debts paid off. Now you've got an individual mortgage for this house that gives you a fixed expense, so you know what it's going to be every month. And then you move on to the next project again because you've freed up your credit cards, you've freed up your home equity line of credit. You just have a regular mortgage on this property. It stands alone. And that's how you make a misflip into a held rental.
Did you make up that word, misflip?
I've heard that term, misflip. Yeah, at a misflip. I got to hold it for a while.
I like it. I'm going to use it.
Yeah. You don't want to do that very often. I mean, seriously, it shouldn't happen very often. If you're doing things the way we just talked about, how you do them, inspect the house, do your due diligence, run all of your math. When you're real confident that everything makes sense, you go back to the seller. You present them with an offer that's good for them and won't hurt you. That's good for you. You're doing this to make money, not to be a charitable organization. And then you do the work and you do it. Time is always of the essence when it comes to these things. The market can change on you. So you want to, 90 days. If you're still doing this 90 days in, things aren't moving as quickly as they were supposed to.
And to be fair, there could also be an unexpected thing that comes up in the rehab that may have cost you a lot more money than you anticipated. And, now that's the reason your margin got small. It may not even be the market. It may be some unexpected expense that was created during the rehab. And now you're just like, this doesn't make sense anymore to sell because all this work for this small amount of money doesn't.
Right, not at the moment. That's why you need to have contingency plans. And your final contingency plan, if you're flipping homes, is to turn it into a rental.
Yes.
Always make sure while you're doing it, though, that math works as well. It needs to work for you. You don't want to hurt yourself.
Right.
So next, I think we're going to talk about
buy and hold, which, of course, is similar, but maybe slightly different. And that is my history, is I have purchased for the purpose of rehabbing and holding, and I'll discuss that in our next podcast.
Until then, I'm Ed Marko.
And I am Kim Von Dohren.
You have been listening to Brick by Brick. Be sure and subscribe, post questions for future episodes, or comment. This is a Super Squirrel production, Super Squirrel Studios, Stony Creek Mills, Pennsylvania.